According to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, a revolution is the usually violent attempt by many people to end the rule of one government and start anew. Using this definition, the Civil War was absolutely a revolution because the South and the North violently fought to decide whether the South will become its own country and thus establish its own government. Now that we know the Civil War was a revolution, was it another American Revolution? Let's take a look at the causes of both wars from economic, political, and social perspectives to find out. In terms of economics, the Tariff of Abominations was a major stimulant of the Civil War. Since Great Britain was infiltrating the nation with cheap goods, the country passed a protective tariff to safeguard industry in the North. As a byproduct, the protective tariffs forced the South to buy manufactured goods, mainly from the North, for higher prices. As a result, the tariffs were nicknamed the Tariff of Abominations. Starting with South Carolina, the southern states were ready to secede from the Union to avoid paying the tariffs, which seemed absolutely unnecessary. The political cartoon shows the South's abhorrence towards the tariffs. Similarly, the colonies fought the Revolutionary War to escape from paying taxes from decrees such as the Stamp, Sugar, and Townshend Acts. Although Great Britain issued these taxes to pay for her debt from the French and Indian War, the colonies fervently believed that the taxes were unjust and absolutely tyrannical because they didn't have representation in the British Parliament to decide on this taxation. Remember the popular phrase, "No taxation without representation"? This picture from the UK Parliament website illustrates the colonists' hatred towards taxes from the Stamp Act with a riot. Speaking of politics, the South went in a civil war with the North because the South did not have the desired Southern representation in Congress to unquestionably maintain their current lifestyle based on slave labor. The political imbalance in Congress tipped when California became a free state after the gold rush. The political imbalance is presented in the sectional divisions in the map of the election of 1860. Literature, such as Uncle Tom's Cabin from the Civil War and Common Sense from the Revolutionary War, also spurred both revolutions by giving a side in the war a valid reason to fight for. These are the front covers of Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin and Paine's Common Sense. Now, let's take a look at the effect of each book on the North and the 13 colonies.
I live in New York, and I just finished reading Uncle Tom's Cabin. I never realized that Southern slave owners were so heartless. Slaves are beaten for not working. They live in gruesome living arrangements, and they have no choices in life. Now, I can't live in a nation that's founded on rights and freedoms, where some people are utterly constrained in society. I must do whatever I can to fight for this cause.
I decided to risk my life and fight for my country's revolution after reading Thomas Paine's Common Sense. Paine argues that it's illogical for Great Britain to rule us thousands of miles away. He's absolutely correct. Great Britain does not understand what we want and how we feel. I must fight for our independence.
There's a lot of similarities between the American Revolution and the Civil War. At their heart, both of the conflicts really go back to social contract theory and the idea that the government has a responsibility to do certain things for the governed. So in the American Revolution, the colonists felt that their rights were being infringed on, most notably their right to representation in their government and thus their liberty, and that their rebellion against the British was therefore justified. In the Civil War, if we look at it from the perspective of the South, they felt that their right to property was then being infringed on, that the government was going to take away their property, in this case, their slaves, and that therefore their rebellion was justified under John Locke's theory that if the government doesn't uphold your natural rights, you should therefore rebel against that government. Of course, what the South fails to acknowledge in the Civil War is that slaves are human beings and have their own natural rights, most notably their right to life and liberty, which were not being acknowledged during this time period.
As you can see, the Civil War is essentially a second American Revolution. The causes of both wars are essentially the same. Without these causes, there would not be a war to fight for that viciously risks the lives of thousands of innocent human beings. Most importantly, the American Revolution and the Civil War decided the nationality of the people in the region, which has many impacts even after.